All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Bongiseni Kumalo. Welcome to this Legal Career Inspiration Day. Special welcome to our guests who've just joined us. Good afternoon to my esteemed colleagues, the faculty, more importantly, the future leaders who are joining us this afternoon. Our students, I'm aware our students are here. Members of the public who have keen interest in the discussion of this afternoon. Welcome to you. Good afternoon. Again, I want to give a very warm and a special welcome to our panelists who have taken time out of their busy schedules to be with us. We really truly appreciate your presence here. We value your opinions and we would be learning a lot from you, particularly our students who are here this afternoon. So let me also just say a few things about Regenesis. I'm the rector here, so responsible for the business of education, the academic project as it were. And Regenesis is just under 30 years old. We were founded in 1998. At that time, it was only just one school. We have since grown, and we now have the School of Law. We were founded by 3 founders who are still very much involved in the business, in growing the institution. Our mission is to make the world a better place, and we do that through quality education. We want all our graduates to come across as conscious as they can be. In this case, particularly, we want our law students, our law graduates, to become conscious legal practitioners as they go out there to practice. Some of them may not be practitioners, but where they go, we want all our graduates to be conscious and to be mindful of their different intelligences. And that's really what I'm referring to by being conscious, to be mindful of their brain power, their rational intelligence, and to continue to learn and read and to continue growing their knowledge in their domains and in many other domains, but also to be mindful of the physical intelligence, to be as healthy as they can be, because we can't just teach cognitive power without, a strong physical intelligence. And we want our participants, our students to be like that. We want them to be aware of their emotions and how to manage their emotions and to manage the emotions of those that they work with. It will just make them better to work with. It will make them to stand out in the industry and different industries really where they will go out to. And we also want them to be mindful and continue to develop that sense of purpose. We refer to that here at Regenesis as spiritual intelligence. So all our LLB students are familiar with this. They cover this in their module, but also just to share as a bit of information about us to all those who are joining us who may not necessarily be in our environment. We want to produce well-rounded graduates who go out to the world and make it a better place, who contribute meaningfully in the spaces where they find themselves. And again, that's how we make the world a better place through our students. So this afternoon, I'm really excited and pleased to be part of this. We are addressing a very liberating and a very vital theme beyond the courtroom. Exploring diverse career paths with an LLB. So thank you for coming up with this theme to the organizing committee that suggested this. I think it makes sense, especially now, to all those who are joining us, particularly our students and those who are going into this field. From the academic point of view, we also don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're developing all individuals. We're developing a whole professional. We're developing a holistic being. Like I was saying, we're not going to look only at one aspect, but we want to be mindful of everything else. So having said that, I want also to say academic success, as our students go through modules and all of that and eventually graduate, academic success is one piece of puzzle. We should also, and this is what we are doing in this way, focusing on what happens after graduation. We want our students when they go out there, we want our graduates when they go out there to thrive after graduation to be successful in the areas where they go to, whether in practice or not, but we want them to be successful. Hence these conversations here. The reality is really that a qualification like LLB is a versatile tool. It's like a master key that opens doors to corporate boardrooms. So people can go into that space, investigative units, people can go there, technology startups, international policy domains. So basically it is a thinking tool. Anyone in some way or the other has something to do with law. So the purpose for today is to have a conversation that bridges the gap between the textbook, what we discuss in class from the academic point of view, and the real world. So this afternoon we're joined by exceptional professionals that have, in their different ways, have navigated successfully the complexities of the legal landscape, and they're here to share. They've, taken the time to share with us, to come and share with us this afternoon the diverse pathways you might want to consider, or you may not have considered, which you may begin to think about after the conversation this afternoon. But also they've come to share accounts of their personal struggles and breakthroughs, what they've gone through, to share also the skills that will make you stand out, because you don't want to complete the qualification and just blend and just struggle. You want to stand out, so we need to build that right now before you even graduate. So it's important that we have these conversations. And I want to say to our students and all those students who have joined us from probably other institutions, the legal space, the legal profession is evolving. It requires a whole lot of things, including ethics, including the analytical rigor, including, the basically unique perspectives that each one of us bring. So this afternoon, I wanted to ask our panelists questions that would be helpful to you in decision making in terms of how your future is going to look like, because you are really building and designing, what your future will probably look like. And I want you to begin to visualize that career that aligns with your passion. You probably have done this in so many different ways, but I want you to, again, this afternoon, just take time to think about it, ask questions, engage. Without further ado, let me begin our journey. It's again a pleasure to welcome all of you who are here. And I also want to now welcome my co-host, Ms. Bontle Ramokoka, who is going to be driving this process with me. And thank you, Bontle. I see you're up there. So Bontle will take over at this point in time to introduce our speakers, and I'll listen in the background. Thank you, Bontle. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khumalo, for such a stupendous welcome. Welcome, everybody, to the Law Career Day. We are excited to have you guys, as well as excited to have our prestigious speakers who will be giving you insight on their journeys and how they use their LLB to get where they are today. So without any further ado, I would like to first present our first speaker, that is Advocate Mahato. Advocate Mahato is an advocate and sits in the chambers of Maisels. He has extensive experience in maritime law, as well as commercial and civil law, and many other laws. He will tell you more about that. So help me welcome Advocate Mahato. The floor is yours, Advocate.
Thank you, Bontle, and thanks, Dr. Khumalo, for that introduction. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity from Regenesis for this career path discussion. So I was invited as a panelist because of being an advocate, and that's what career path I'll be sharing some depth and some light into this afternoon. So, and obviously the starting point of being an advocate would obviously be the academic component, and you'd start off with an LLB. So I do possess an LLB. So after I did my LLB with University of Johannesburg in Auckland Park, after the LLB, after my qualification or qualifying in 2008, I came straight to the Johannesburg bar and commenced my pupillage during 2009. Started practice from the latter part of 2009 to date. So it's basically 17 years, going to 18 years in practice. So the other important thing that one realized in as far, and going back to Dr. Khumalo's point of not wanting to blend in just merely because you've got an LLB, one then proceeded to embark on postgraduates with vets. I completed my mining and energy law qualifications and my advanced prospecting law with the late Professor Dale, who's the authority in South Africa in as far as the drafting of the Mineral, Petroleum and Resource Development Act. Then further proceeded to do an advanced postgrad with vets in company law with Professor Michael Katz. As you are aware, Michael Katz is also a leading authority in company law and one of the drafters of the Companies Act of 2008. So, in as far as the career opportunities available are concerned, I've never been an attorney, so I can only attest to being an advocate. What I did do during my 4 years of my undergrad is I did vocational work with a law firm in Pretoria, but that was with an intention of gaining some practical experience for purposes of coming straight to the bar from university, because the normal route as suggested route basically is normally to start off by doing articles, and then only in the latter part of your careers then pursuing becoming an advocate. So those are two opportunities. So you can either start by being an attorney or go straight to the bar. So my path was straight to the bar from varsity. So with that said, the roles and responsibilities of an advocate are basically dealing with attorneys. So we as advocates cannot deal with members of the public directly. I cannot consult directly with a member of the public without the involvement of an attorney, hence the notion of briefing advocates, because the attorneys are then dealing directly with the clients and have that interface. And for purposes of litigation or advice, they then brief an advocate depending on the complexity of the matter. But the complexity of the matters that one will be dealing with depends on the type of expertise that one possesses. So the idea basically is to make yourself more competitive, because you would imagine as you are joining the profession, the briefs that you'll be receiving were already in the market, or those attorneys were in the market for advocates. So then you'd have to prove yourself as to why is it necessary or possible for a law firm that has already been briefing advocates in the industry should then in those circumstances brief you, whether with a simple or a complex matter. So the main role of advocates is basically consulting with attorneys and clients, drafting pleadings, interpreting agreements. It's very rare that you'd find advocates drafting agreements, although clients may want you to give an opinion on the interpretation of certain agreements, even in draft form, with anticipating legal implications should they ensue. So the briefing structure is the normal way of conducting yourself as an advocate. And obviously, one to become an advocate would have to go through the intense training program of pupillage, which is takes place for a duration of 1 year. And I must state this up front, that 1 year is without remuneration. Being a pupillage is very intense. It's equivalent to having a 4-year LLB within a period of a year. So it's both theoretical and practical. The Johannesburg bar is one of the most internationally recognized bars and one of actually the best bars in Africa. So the training standard is quite high. In addition to that, after the pupillage, you then start doing practicals where you are assigned to a mentor who's a practicing advocate who will, in inverted commas, baby you for the year. You'll consult with him or her, be based in their chamber, do and be exposed to the type of work that they do, go to them with to court, so that you have that physical experience or the actual experience in court for purposes of knowing how to conduct yourself as an advocate. And obviously, I do not have to remind you that the ethics are of a very high standard. We officers of the court, and we must then conduct ourselves in a specific manner in as far as our professional careers are concerned. So there's a lot of input or work that is done before a matter is landing up in court. There's a lot of documents and reading that goes to it, and research, obviously. So one advice that we were given in undergrad is that if you're not interested in studying and learning daily, then we should suggest a different career path to you. So the career path of being an advocate is quite intense in as far as research is concerned, which is a daily occurrence over and above the drafting. So basically, by the time you draft, your drafting will be informed by the research that you've conducted. So your research is quite intense. And of late, there's also been issues around research with the use of AI and those shortcomings as far as AI is concerned. It is a great tool, but the other traditional tools like case law or law reports that you can see behind me are the normal conservative traditional route. But the profession is obviously transforming and changing and adapting to the times, and to a certain extent, the AI is playing a role, but within its confines, because there was even a case not so long ago of people getting into trouble in court for relying on non-existent case law authorities that came about as a result of AI. So in as far as being able to build one's career with an LLB is concerned, as an advocate, you'll have to start from the bottom and work your way up. There is no shortcut. If you want to get to the top quickly, the advocate route is unfortunately not for you. It's quite an informed and intense process of developing your practice, which requires consistent discipline, consistent work. Advocates barely sleep during the week, so we've got a notion of you nap during the week and you sleep over the weekend. So if you more inclined to sleeping at night and rather than studying and research, you're gonna have it rather tough in this profession. So the challenges one experienced, obviously coming from university, is that one found themselves having to be briefed by attorneys. Most of the people that I had studied with at the time were doing first year or second year articles by the time I started studying. I started practicing. So it was challenging at the beginning, like any other business. And I kept at it daily for all those years for it to get to where it is now. And I'm consistently still working at it to get it to the next level. As you're aware that in this profession, you have to be competitive and actually be able to compete for the mainstream type of work, especially in the line of mining, maritime, environmental, and energy law. So there's a big move and a big exposure now to energy law, which is very interesting. Energy law also then goes to a bit of climate change law, which is also briefing, like I said, but the trick to it was then to utilize each and every case like it's your last case, and you'd have to impress and show that you are worthy of the next brief. So that's how I started my practice and continued with it. Initially started off with some banking law, which were foreclosures, and start off on an unopposed court. And then you gradually build it to opposed motions before eventually getting to a position where you'll be in the Supreme Court of Appeal or the Constitutional Court, or even before a full bench. But the proper training is important so that you come across as being competent. You're dealing with members of the public, and you're dealing with real life problems. It's real life problems, and it's real money that people are expending on your services. So the highest degree of competence and performance is required in those circumstances. The key lesson learned from the professional journeys is that perseverance does pay off. Shortcuts don't pay off. You must keep in mind that as an advocate, you can't tout, meaning you can't be really advertising yourself and touting for work and putting yourself out there vis-a-vis being an attorney that you can see on billboards and advertising the professional skills that they possess. So the essential skills that one requires: one, academics, the academic component of the theory part you can't run away from. The hard work and persistence and perseverance, and not necessarily ending up being comfortable or being in a comfort zone. We found that the comfort zone has actually destroyed a lot of practices, especially practices then can't adapt and change to the ever-changing environment of the legal profession. And one example in relation to that is colleagues that were in the road accident fund practice, and we've seen how those changes in that part of the legal profession have then affected a lot of our colleagues. Even as advocates, colleagues were affected. So in as far as professionalism and ethics are concerned, you can't compromise on that. It's very shocking to consider the statistics around some of our colleagues that have been struck off or suspended. So as an advocate, these changes that were brought about by the LPA Act for actually being on advocates with trust accounts. I personally do not believe in having a trust account for, in addition to my sanity, it's for professional reasons. Trust accounts, we've actually seen advocates now with trust accounts that have been subsequently struck off. And the business side of it, like any other business, you have to network. The type of people and crowd that you network with will then determine the type of work you're going to get. If you want to do the commercial side of it, then you'll have to be involved or be in the right circles that will then advance that commercial ambition that you have. In as much as that is said, there's also a criminal side, the criminal law of it, which some people still like. I only do commercial law as indicated, but the criminal space with everything and that's happening in the country now, there's bail applications almost on a daily. So the criminal component is also available. So my advice for any person who wants to become an advocate is, one, you your own boss. So being your own boss comes with your own responsibilities and obligations. As an advocate, a sick note doesn't work. That's on the business side of it, because you'd be basically giving yourself the sick notes. So there's a saying in our profession that you die with your boots on. So it's very hard as an advocate because you're a sole practitioner. So if you're not working, there is no fees being generated. And the flexibility of being an advocate, money can buy. No one will ask you, where are you? Why are you not at work? There's no tracking system in that part of the profession. But what it then requires is a very high level of discipline and self-discipline, importantly, in the interest of the growth of your practice. So the strategy that you will adopt in advancing your practice will then determine the growth and the trajectory of, and the speed of the trajectory of your practice. But from my side, I think I've highlighted the main features. And obviously you have to be competitive like in any business. You have to up your game. So going back to school and getting or varsity to get more qualifications is always a good idea. Besides it looking good on your CV, it actually makes you more competitive, meaning that you'll be able to deal with more complex matters, even at an international level. Yeah, I think that's about it from my side. I don't know, Wintley, can we do some questions?
Yes, thank you so much for that. We have one question in the chats from Peral, who says, can you advise on the route to being admitted as an advocate whilst employed? As you mentioned, that pupillage process is not remunerated.
Thank you. The one thing I did not mention is that I'm involved in the advocacy training of the pupil advocates, to an extent that one is also involved in the selection of candidates to be enrolled into pupillage. Unfortunately, you can't be employed whilst doing your pupillage because the one aspect is that, and a lot of our colleagues that we've seen coming for the interviews is that they like thinking that the becoming an advocate is a title and rely on the prefix, and it's actually not a title, it's an occupation. So you can't be, unfortunately, you can't be employed, but there are mechanisms that the bar has of funding in the form of a stipend those who are suitably qualified, obviously. So a support structure is important, especially if you want to go straight from varsity. Hence the suggestion or the normal route that is followed to say that start off by doing your articles first, then have that kitty, and then once you've got that kitty, then you can consider being a pupillage because it then mitigates that lack of remuneration. I think I've answered that question.
Thank you so much. And the next question is from Malasani, who says, why are trust accounts problematic for advocates?
Okay, the trust account was initially made for attorneys for putting funds in trust. The change for incorporating it to advocates has somewhat then created a problem because then it's created a window for ulterior usage of the trust account. It's not necessarily problematic. I wouldn't have personal experience of the intricacies, but obviously, objectively, one is embezzlement. That embezzlement aspect also applies to attorneys, and we've seen how many attorneys have been struck off either for road accident or eating or consuming clients' funds or misusing funds etc., etc. The next question, Muntla.
Okay, looking at the time, we'll just take one other question. We have Cameron who says, thank you for a very informative insight. As someone interested in becoming an advocate, I wanted to ask whether you would recommend completing one master's degree before undertaking pupillage.
Yes, what we consider one of the considerations during your application to become an advocate is your academic qualifications, and obviously having a master's would give the necessary weight to your application. So I never say no or discourage anyone who wants to further their studies. Buntle, can I just make a point on the legal sector code, which is an ongoing part? I had the pleasure of actually advising the sector committee or the legal sector on before the gazetting of the sector code. So I have some insight into it. It's a very interesting and informative manner of trying to then impose constitutionally the aspect of transformation in the legal transformation. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you so much, Advocate. I believe looking at the time, we can move on, but thank you so much for your wonderful words. And if there's any other questions, guys, we will have the last 10 minutes of the session to ask any other questions you have for the advocate. So thank you once again, Advocate. And we are very welcome to have your words and inspiring information. Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Donald Tippe. Mr. Donald Tippe is a senior legal advisor at Nedbank Limited. He specializes in commercial law, technology law, procuring contracts, as well as regulatory compliance. So help me in welcoming Mr. Donald Tippe. Thank you so much, Mr. Donald Tippe.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Buntle and the fellow panelists. I'm not okay. Please do not mind my background. I'm on vacation, so yeah. I know it's in the afternoon where you are, and where I am now, it's very early in the morning. It's just after 5. So yeah. So as a way of giving my background around my career, I'm a senior legal advisor at Nedbank Limited currently, more into the group technology department where we specialize in technology. But then where I started after completing my LLB at Northwest University in 2001, I started as an intern at the Competition Commission of South Africa. And while doing my internship, I realized I need to get admitted so that I can open up opportunities for myself. I resigned from the program in my 10th month. It was a year program, and moved to the Legal Resources Center. Legal Resources Center deals with public-related matters, or constitutional matters. And when I got there, I realized that, this is not for me. Then I ceded my articles to Spoor and Fisher Attorneys, which is an IP law firm. What I liked there is that during my studies, part of my modules as elective modules was intellectual property law. So that's where I fitted. And after my articles, I stayed there for a year. And to 2006, I got admitted as an attorney. Then I moved to the internal legal advisory, which is legal counsel. I moved to Telkom, stayed for about 5 years at Telkom, and there I was placed in the procurement space or procurement environment, meaning I was advising the company on any procurement related matters, but then more leaned towards technology and or IT and networks, which is still part of and parcel of technology, but then more on the other side of the business, which is the networks business. And in between, I moved to SARS, South African Revenue Service, where I was more into the technology or IT department, being a legal advisor within the IT department. And I went back to Telkom, did as a senior legal advisor, did the same thing that I did there before, which is internal legal advisory, more into the procurement space, your IT and the networks. Then 2019, I moved into the current role, which is the NetBank role, advising the company on the technology stuff. So the background is important in the sense that if you consider what I've been doing since I got admitted, is more specialized fields, which is more technology. So one advice that I can give to the LLB graduates is to identify their passion and their areas of interest earlier in their studies, to avoid being the generalist. Because if you check the trends now, everything is moving towards more specialized fields. So as a lawyer, the days of being a general counsel, dealing with everything, coming to an end. So identify what you love, your passion, and again, I mean, if you do what you love, I mean, you will feel fulfilled of doing whatever that you come across for the sake of survival. So that's one advice I would give to the LLB graduates, to say, while during your studies, I mean, you study all sorts of laws or branches of laws, identify the ones that you are or that you feel that you want to specialize in. I mean, there's law for everything. So pick your interest earlier in your studies, or before you venture into practice. So the difference between being a legal advisor and practicing in your account is, if you go to Law Society now, you will find my name in the register of non-practicing attorneys, because you went through with the training, you got admitted, you wrote board exams, but you're not practicing on your own account. So unlike those who are practicing on their account, I'm not going to talk about the trust accounts and all that. That's when you are practicing as an attorney, where you have to comply with all sorts of requirements from the law societies, one being around the trust funds, which is a very tricky issue for most of the practicing attorneys. So with being a legal internal counsel, what does it mean? It means you become part and parcel of the company. You have to understand, because you are an employee, you have to understand the strategy of the company. You have to understand the areas that you service. Say, for example, in my area, I'm supporting the group technology within the bank. Anything that's got to do with technology, your SaaS solution, your PaaS solution. When I say the SaaS solution, it's software as a service. So we're talking AI. Everyone is talking AI now. Everyone is migrating from on-premise solutions to cloud solutions. So those are the things that are informed by the strategies of the company. And you have to understand, so that you can be able to advise when you negotiate deals, you can advise the company accordingly. So again, what you need to understand is, when I say you have to understand the portfolios that you're servicing. Say, for example, today you wake up and you're negotiating with a multinational, your IBM, your Microsoft. You have to understand what the company, your employer, is sourcing or buying how it will be delivered, meaning the SLAs. When I say the SLAs, I mean with technology, when you buy a technology, you took in the milestone. If it's a solution, end-to-end solution, you have to know at what point will that solution be implemented within your environment, who will be doing what, at what cost, and if they do not provide the solution in terms of how it was agreed, how are you going, or how are you mitigating those risks, and how are you going to hold the service provider or the vendor accountable? Usually we use the service level credits, and if there are disputes, then we have to follow the dispute mechanisms that were agreed on. And when I say the dispute mechanism, say for example, if you're negotiating, most of the time you're negotiating with the multinationals, and you'll find that the contract is governed by the English law, and the jurisdiction is, the English courts, or the English chambers and all that. So it's a very interesting market environment, in the sense that you operate, your clients are more technology people with your engineering backgrounds, people with your IT backgrounds, because it's different in as much as we call it technology, but then it requires different disciplines of technology. Not everyone is a BSc holder. Some are the engineers within, So it's a multiple skills that you're servicing, and hence it's very important to understand IT as if you are an IT specialist, so that it will, as it makes it easier for you to understand the portfolio that you're servicing. And two, if you're servicing, say during my time at SARS, you're servicing a public institution like SARS, which is a Schedule 3 PFMA entity. It's even, you have to go to an extent of understanding the regulations, because you will be sitting in those committees, your BEC or your BAC. So you have to, more than advising the company on the solutions themselves or drafting contracts, you must understand the regulatory framework, because you will be sitting in the committees. And that's where the decision making comes into play. And why that is very important to understand that. Today we're having some of the commissions, and if you listen properly, some of the issues are around that, which are governance issues. To say, when you're sitting in a committee, a procurement committee, you have to understand the roles and responsibilities. You have to understand the obligations as a committee member, so that when you make those decisions, it's in compliance with the governance prescripts. So being an internal legal advisory is not as easy as it looks. Most of the times, the very same business people will want to sway or convince you to see things their way, and you need to be independent in terms of apply your mind. At the same time, do everything that you do on a daily basis in the best interest of your employer. I've seen a whole lot of legal counsels being compromised, agreeing with people even if things are not done in accordance with the company policies, because with the private sector versus the public sector, most of the time when it comes to procurement issues, it's more driven by the procurement policy, I mean internal policies. So familiarize yourself as a legal counsel, familiarize yourself with the company policies that are applicable in your space or in the functions that you're performing, so that you don't get caught wanting when it comes to governance issues. So that's in short, that's what I do on daily basis. And now that there's a big shift, everyone is talking fintechs. Fintechs in our space is a very growing phenomenon, and most of the companies are actually investing more into the fintechs. And in the current fourth industrial revolutions, one of the fast-growing components of businesses are fintechs. So technology is growing. Technology is everything today. Advocate Makhat was talking about the AI and all that. That's what we do on a daily basis. It's something that we cannot run away from. The issue of AI, you cannot talk AI without necessarily talking ethics, because and you cannot talk AI without applying your mind, which is something that most of the people get caught on the wrong side of AI by just taking it as is. It's still a growing space. It's not what we all want it to be. Hence, it's very important and critical that when you use AI tools, you have to choose whatever that you use carefully, because there are issues of ethics involved. So do not just take it and rely on it 100% without actually applying your mind, because whatever that you prompt or input, AI will analyze it and give you the output. So it's very important to understand the intricacies of AI, how it functions and all that, and understand the ethical part of it, and also understand that AI most of the time gives what you prompt into. So it's very important to when you use it and when you prompt or when you input as much accurate info as possible, so that the output can come out in a quality that you're looking for. So the challenges in the space that I'm in, which is a internal legal counsel. One, we are employees. So in as much as you know, so this is one of the challenges. As employees, sometimes we stay long in a company. I'll give an example where I am now. We've been having the same team for at least the last 7 years. So when it comes to opportunities, they might not come thick and fast as you wish, because if people stay long, then it might mean that you will have to stay in the same position for the longest time, and maybe if you want career progression, you have to map it in such a way that if you want to move every 7 years, do that, or if every 5 years. So you have to map out your career in such a way that one, you know the area of specialties. Two, you have to try to determine at what point you want to be in your career in a sense that if the opportunities or the promotion doesn't come, as much as you want, then identify the companies that you want to work for. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it. Say, for example, I'm in a financial sector and I've been in the telecom. So those were my targeted industries. But if today you find yourself in the financial sector, tomorrow you wake up in a mining in a mining company, the next thing you in this. So that can affect in the long run. It might affect because you're not specializing in everything. You are a technology lawyer, but in different sectors. So for me, I'll say, in as much as you identify your career targets, also identify the companies or the sectors that you want to operate within. If you want to do the banking or the financial sector, stick to it. If you want to do telecom, stick to it. So for me, my targeted areas were always financial sector and telecommunication. Again, the challenge that if you are into money, you want a whole lot of money. I must say upfront, I am of the view, personal, I mean, money issues are personal, but then I am of the view that internal legal advisory, as you progress, you get remunerated fairly. You are an employee, you get remunerated fairly. However, if you want more, maybe you should consider going into the practice, which is not easier because you are your own boss. Sometimes if you're running your own company, or into the being an advocate, again, which is not easy, but then you are your own boss. You determine your own paycheck. But with us as legal internal counsels, we are employees and we get remunerated by the companies in terms of their remuneration policies or whatever that they determine that you are getting paid for. So yeah, in short, that's me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tipe, for such a practical and valuable insight. We now will go to questions. Elizabeth will be taking the questions for the next 5 minutes. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bontle. The first question that we have is from Tabo. He says, does it matter? Oh, just 1 second. Says, does it matter whether you're an attorney or advocate in pursuing a career as a legal advisor in a corporate institution?
The answer is short. Most of the companies, when they list the internal legal advisor, they always require, or one of the requirements will always be the experience post-admission, be it an admission as an attorney or as an advocate, because I mean there's been a whole lot of movement from the bars, especially the junior advocates who tend to move from the bars and move in different directions. Maybe some going into the legal advisory roles. So most of the companies, yes, majority, they do require admission, their post-admission experience.
Okay,
I know. I'll give an example for the fact that during my time at Telkom, there was a decision at some point to say we will only hire people who got admitted. But again, it differs. I mean, internal legal advisor, depending where you want to, because it's not only, I was giving perspective from the technology point of view where I am, where I specialize. But there are a whole lot of other roles within the company. Say, for example, compliance, risk. Most of the risk people and compliance people are lawyers. Let's call it generally, are LLB holders, are lawyers, and not everyone in that space is admitted. So when it comes to being a legal or internal legal resource, there are a whole lot of opportunities. There's risk, there's compliance components. There's a whole lot of components that an LLB holder can actually do within the corporate or companies.
Okay. Thank you. The next question is, as a second year law student, is it okay to not know what to specialize in?
It is okay. I mean, the second year, you still trying to. I mean, first year you're excited that you are a law student and you still in awe of those legal or terms and all that. Second year, you're trying to find your fit in your studies. So I think as you progress, especially the third and the fourth year, that's where you have to, because now that's where electives comes into play. Hence, I said, choose as electives, it's advisable that you choose courses which you might want to specialize in. So as a third year, fourth year, because depending on the varsity that you are at, but that's where you have to make those choices. So for me, as a lawyer, you from day one as a law student, that's why you get trained to be a critical thinker. You get trained to be a disciplined person. So it will be advisable to apply yourself and determine earlier, but then it's not a sin not to know what you will be specializing in your second year of your studies. But the sooner you start identifying that, I'm of the view that you will turn out well. Because that will also give you an opportunity to start targeting the companies that you want to work for. Remember, as a law student, you can do those vocational work at the firms, at the companies, and all that. So once you've identified what you want to specialize in, you can start knocking on the doors of your potential employers in the form of vocational work.
Okay, the next question is, can one be a non-practicing attorney where they work at an organization and then go back to practicing after retiring from that company?
It's definitely yes. So what happens is you get admitted the first time, and then if you go into the legal advisory, if you are practicing and you go into the corporate, you have to inform law society that you're no longer practicing. Now you are an internal legal counsel. What that means is they'll move your name from the practicing role to the non-practicing role. So if you want to go back, so there's a course, I forgot the name, that you'll have to enroll for. I think it's a couple of months, and then once you've went through that those training sessions, then you get re-enrolled into the practicing attorney role.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Donald Tipe. We would like to end the questions and answer session now so that we proceed with the next person. Bontle, over to you.
Thank you so much again for your presentation, Mr. Tipe. We have our third speaker. This is Advocate Sitaba Tunu. He is an advocate practicing and specializing in construction, engineering, commercial, and administrative law. So let us welcome Advocate Sitaba Tunu. The floor is yours, Advocate.
Thank you very much, Bontle. I'm just checking, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you to the Regenesis team for the invite. I really appreciate it. In my presentation, I'll just try and piggyback on the previous speakers, being my brother and Leonard colleague, Advocate Makato, as well as David Tipe, and also just try and address or really direction my presentation based on the questions that have been raised by some of the participants in this session. But by way of background, I will start. I did my LLB. After my LLB, I wasn't sure as to whether I wanted to be an attorney or advocate, but of course I was more leaning towards being an advocate. And the reason as well for me was also, what do I do now? And the reality is, with an LLB, I mean, it's the most diverse, versatile degree. I think one of the most versatile degree of them all, on the basis that you can literally pivot into any field with an LLB. But crucially, the pressing question is, which field do I go into? And there's something that I did, which I think did put me in good stead at the end of my LLB somewhat. And Mr. Tipe mentioned this, which is essentially to plug into vocational training work, right? During my LLB, I think as of second year, I always did vacation work at different firms. I think during the 4 year of my LLB, I did vocational training at least six different law firms. And in those 6 different law firms, I did, I went to one of the big 5, I think 2 of the big 5. I did the vacation work at some included the medium-sized firms and some included the so-called small-sized firms. And the exposure that I got there was very helpful because you get a glimpse and a snippet into the different areas of law, from maritime to construction to mining to family law, to anything that you can think of. And you also get exposed to the culture of the firms. You get exposed to the day-to-day of the firm. You sit in boardrooms. You get given assignments to do at night, after the day. So there's a lot that goes on during those trainings and that vocational work period. And it's at that point where I developed my interest for construction law. I remember, I think it was third year of my LLB, where I developed an interest for construction law, and which is so much of a paradox as well. It was, I think, in that same firm where I got that development for construction law, where I said, I don't think I want to be an attorney. But at the same time, having been able to do that vocational work and the vacation work at these different firms also gave me, by extension, exposure to the work that advocates would do, because I'd go to court and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of my LLBs, I then had to decide which firms. Of course, I applied. I got a few offers, but I chose to go to a firm to do my articles of clerkship based on the fact that I'd already developed an area that I want to venture into, and that informed the decision that I made to go to this particular firm. So I went to that firm. I went into the construction and commercial department, and I worked there for 3 years, and that firm gave me exposure, to other commercial stuff outside construction. I had construction work as well, and so forth and so on. But like I said, I always knew that I didn't want to stay as an attorney. I just loved the thrill of being an advocate. I wanted to argue matters. I wanted, to be. I didn't want to spend too much time in the office. I wanted more time in court, more time, just arguing and, researching the law and so forth. And then, after 3 years, I went to the bar, did my pupillage, and I am now here at the bar. When one considers the journey, I know people are asking, is it necessary to be qualified, to have an L, or to be admitted and so forth? I will always strongly recommend that you become qualified, or you become admitted as either an attorney or an advocate. It always puts you in good stead, and it's always an advantage, because although the LLB is broad and will, like I said, put you into different areas or fields, as Mr. Tipe said, most of the companies will want an admitted attorney or an admitted advocate. Of course, the conventional route will be either become an attorney or an advocate, or become a prosecutor. And the alternatives will always be going corporate, either as a legal advisor, compliance. You can go into industrial relations and do CCMA work and the likes. You can also, with your qualification, go into things such as working for the Chapter 9 institutions, such as Human Rights Commission. You can work for. You can even go and become a clerk at the Corn Court. You can become a registrar or clerk in the High Court. There's so many things you can do with your qualification. But ultimately, it's very important that you do become admitted as an attorney or an advocate, because that ultimately really just extends your options. And when it comes to growth within the profession, or whatever you want to do with your LLB, it's very important to have a mentor. Very, very important, because there are many challenges. Whether you choose the direction of becoming an advocate, or you want to become an attorney, or you want to go in-house and do legal advisory work, at the end of the day, you're going to be met with some grave challenges. And for you to be successful in anything, you always have to really lean on strong people who will advise you correctly, who will direction you appropriately. In fact, even as a student currently, I remember one of the reasons why I actually continued pursuing my journey as an attorney, notwithstanding that I could feel that I wanted to become an advocate, is because of the mentor that I had at the time as a student. He always advised me that, listen, go be an attorney. It's all good and well to be an advocate, but go be an attorney. Go learn the ropes there, learn the trade there, network there, build relationships, and at that point, when you feel that you are ready to jump over, then you jump over, because the reality is that, as Advocate Makgato said, being an advocate it's not easy. It's very cold. In as much as you own your time and your own boss, that also comes with the difficulty of not being able to really have a team per se to support you. You make decisions, very serious decisions that you have to take sometimes on your own. Of course, you can, get advice and speak to colleagues about certain things, but it's not in a protected environment like being an attorney or working for a company where you can take collective decisions. So, but having that mentor at the time was able to draw me to the bigger picture of how to really map out my career. And so, mentorship, I can't stress the importance of having mentors, not just after your LLB, but even during your LLB, because these are the same mentors as well who might help you to identify certain areas of interest. These are mentors who might introduce you to certain people, who might give you these vocational work trainings, and who might introduce you once again to certain people who might know other people who might be willing to give you a chance during these vocational training stints, because I know that getting VAC work is not easy. It's not easy. There's thousands and thousands of students who are looking for vocation work, because that's also your audition for some of the firms. It's also an audition, of course, to expose yourself, and to put yourself out there to these firms. So it's very competitive. But if my advice usually is that if you can't get vocation work, be brave enough to approach people individually. I mean, if you go to some of the law firms or the websites of advocates, the emails are there. I've always said, if you can't get vacational or vacation work through the traditional forms of applying online, be brave. Ask to go shadow someone for 1 or 2 days. You know, identify that person. Usually on the websites, you will see the person's area of practice and reach out to the person, send an email. I'd like to get insight on this particular area of law. Can you please spare me a day or two to come follow you around and to see how you do things? And if let's say you email or you approach at least 50 people, I can assure you that at least 3 or 4 will give you a positive response, and you'll get the necessary exposure to or snippets to that particular area of law, and that will be of assistance to you. Another thing that it is important as LLB students that you guys should think about right now. I think with everything happening with the commissions and everything, it's important to come to the realization that as you pursue your LLB degree and studies, that you remind yourself why you're doing this. And lawyers fundamentally are supposed to be the repository of the law and ethics and values and all the like. If you are not aligned with those principles and values, I would strongly, suggest that you reconsider, because you are going to be in testing situations, situations where clients and whoever briefs you, whoever will really test the spine of your ethics and where you stand. So by the time you make an election as to which career path within the legal field you want to take, make sure that you've got your ethics and your principles intact, because they are going to be tested. And unfortunately, a mentor of mine always used to say that your reputation as a lawyer is everything. And when that's gone as a lawyer, the profession is done for you. So make sure that your ethics and your principles and your values are always intact. And as to just speaking about the profession in general, or let me just speak about rather being either an attorney or an advocate. As my brother Makhato has said, it's very intense. It's very difficult. He's correct in saying that, 5 hours of sleep or 6 hours of sleep is a luxury in the profession. It's hard work. It's long hours. It's long-winded hours. It's sometimes you have to make high stakes, decisions on high stakes matters. But at the end of the day, the positive of it is that the career does reward you. It is a rewarding career. It does come with its rewards. So there are pros and cons, but I do believe that the pros will always outweigh the cons in the profession, and that there are no shortcuts, as he mentioned as well. So you really need to put your best foot forward, because the competition will always be there. But at the end of the day, people pay for value, notwithstanding the competition. If you have primed yourself to be a brilliant professional in whatever space that you're going to decide to venture into, make sure you spend time in that space, invest in learning. Advocates never stop learning. That's why if you had to come to my chambers, you're going to find individuals there who are 70 plus years still working, because it is a passion. But beyond the passion, you continuously learn. And I think that's the joy of it. You will never get bored, because there's always something to learn. So yeah, from my side, really, it's just emphasizing the point that try as much as you can to do the vacation work, expose yourself to different areas of the law. There's so much you can do. It's the most versatile degree you can ever obtain. You can today you can shift from being an attorney, you can become an advocate tomorrow. From advocate, you can be legal advisor. From legal advisor, you can be a clerk at the Corn Court. From clerk in the Corn Court, you can go take a break and do something else. It's the most versatile degree. But like I said, above it all, at this stage of your career, try identify your areas of passion, your areas of interest, and that takes you to make the effort to apply for vacation work. If you can't get that, approach individuals directly. You will get a response. Don't be let down by the rejection and all of that. Someone will give you a positive response and an opportunity to come do the vacation work. And and so far as pursuing your further studies with LLMs and so forth, go for it, as Makato said. Go for it. Pursuing a master's, let's say, for example, in maritime or mining or whatever, doesn't really guarantee that you'll end up in that area or field in your practice. And it doesn't also necessarily mean that you might enjoy the practice. So that's why I still am a proponent that, in fact, if you want to pursue any particular interest or even qualification, try and at least get exposure to that field first, and then take it from there. That's all from me. So I'm just open for questions now.
Thank you so much, Advocate Kunu, for your advice and encouraging words. Elizabeth, do we have any questions? Guys, all other questions that we don't go through today, we will send your questions to our speakers and they will respond when they have the time to respond via email.
Okay, thank you so much, Bontle. We have a thread of questions from Dr. Khumalo. The first one is, I have a BCom law degree, a postgraduate qualification in contract drafting, and I'm completing my LLB with electives in notarial practice, electronic commerce law, and banking law. Based on this background, what career path or niche would you recommend I focus on?
It's a tricky one, and I say that because I think my other colleagues can attest. What you learn and what actually happens in practice are two different things. I don't want to tell people to go into particular practice areas solely on the basis of having done let's say, a master's or a certain certificate in something, because ideally you might find that you don't enjoy the thing. So I stick to my point that you really invest in getting the practical insight of that particular field. Because essentially, if you've done what the person raising the question has done, you, based on what they've studied or based on whatever qualification they've gained, it strikes me as commercial stuff and so forth. You can get into any commercial law firm, and with that knowledge, you might add some value into that particular firm or that particular department at that firm. But like I said, as to whether you're going to love it and enjoy it, it's a different thing. It's a different thing. But also with having done the contracts and everything that's drafting, once again, it opens you it doesn't limit you to a law firm. You can literally work, for example, with the construction companies and let's say the other commercial companies that I work with on matters. They've got in-house legal people that deal with the contracts, they deal with a whole lot of things. So it puts you in good stead to basically venture into an attorney space, or I mean, the traditional legal space or the alternative legal space, you know.
Thank you. The next question is, with AI and technology becoming more important in the legal industry, would doing an LLM in cyber law or technology law strengthen my current path, especially for careers in banking, compliance, insurance, or financial services?
100%. 100%. I've got a good friend of mine and a colleague. She has a LLM in the cyberspace. In the past 3 years, they've been really they've been really trying to poach her. She's switched between 2 companies. She's now working for another African company in the ICT space, for example. So yeah, with the whole AI thing and the cyber space, you know, evolving and really just taking a spike, it is I would say the most lucrative area of the law. And of course, banks are always looking for people with great expertise in that area, you know, given, like I said, the spike and the evolution in that space. So absolutely, go for it.
Thank you. The next question is, would you still recommend completing articles and getting admitted as an attorney, even if someone plans to work as a non-practicing attorney in corporate banking, compliance, or insurance environments rather than the traditional legal practice?
Once again, I'll make reference to a friend. There's a friend of mine. At that time, they left varsity, went straight into the banking space, or risk compliance, realized that I've hit the ceiling, and the only way I can break through the ceiling is if I get my admission. They went back, got the admission, went back into the banking sector, got promoted, and they're now heading a department there. So once again, absolutely, go get admitted. It can only improve you within whatever space you're going to venture into. Get admitted.
Thank you very much, Sechaba. I do believe that is most of the questions that the student have. So I hope that they've taken good note of that.
But sorry,
very much.
Sorry to interject. One last thing. There's no substitute for hard work. They must work hard. They must get good. It's tough out there. So it starts by working very hard now, and then yeah. But thank you very much for the opportunity.
I hope everybody's heard that hard work is the key.
Okay.
There are no short.
There's one question. I've got 2 minutes. I know I've got 2 minutes. There's one question on the legal AI. Can I answer that one? Because it just went away now. It's something about legal AI.
No, it's fair. Yes. So what is your thoughts on legal AI? Or what are your thoughts? Yes.
As my brother Makato said, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Lawyers must leverage on it. Of course, it's for efficiency purposes, it's good, but people must use it with circumspect. Like, you must be very careful when you use it, because it does hallucinate. And as lawyers, you can never substitute going through those thousands of documents. What it can do for you, you can leverage on it to organize documents and basically to play around or to brainstorm. That's yeah. So to organize documents and to brainstorm. But as lawyers, an entire case can turn on a sentence that an AI legal tool can never pick up on. So you must still read the thousands of documents, but it will just help you on how to read and navigate. But there's no substitute for the reading and you know, going through all the case law and reading each paragraph. But yeah, you must leverage on it. But yeah, there's no substitute for the long hours of reading the documents.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mpuno. We will close off with the section of the questions and answers now and proceed with the next speaker. Over to you, Muntle.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Our next speaker is Naomi Muya. She is an attorney of the High Court, a business leader, and a founder for the Women in Law. Welcome, Ms. Naomi. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Hi, thank you very much. I just want to check if I'm audible, if you can hear me.
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much for inviting me to this session. Special thank you to Regenesis School of Law, or Law School rather. I also recognize and am very much deeply aware of the responsibility that I hold as the only woman in the panel. So thank you very much. I'm Noemi Muya. I'm an attorney of the High Court of South Africa, and I'm also the founder of For Women in Law, a platform resolved on empowering women in law through career guidance, legal education, and mentorship. So I know I only have 20 minutes and I could go on, but I'm going to try and squeeze everything I kind of have to impart in the 20 minutes by firstly talking about my career and what I do, but also exploring with you the different career opportunities available for law graduates. And I'm going to focus on the careers the non-traditional careers rather. If you will allow me. But a little bit about me, I started my career, so I got my BA law degree at the Northwest University and then proceeded to pursue my LLB degree. The reason why I chose to study law wasn't necessarily because I wanted to become a practicing attorney. In fact, I had no intentions of becoming a practicing attorney. The reason why I chose to get into law, to study law, was because I really wanted to work for the UN, the United Nations. I'm an avid reader, and growing up, I read a lot of books. I read a series of books called Freedom Fighters. It's the series of books with all the freedom fighters around the world. And I noticed a pattern with all these freedom fighters. Number one, they all had some kind of workings with the United Nations, and the work that they did really resonated with me. And I knew that I eventually wanted to work in a space that provided me with a voice for women in Africa. And I thought the United Nations was where I would, be able to kind of pursue that kind of work. And as I would read these books, I realized all these figures who were involved with the United Nations, they all had one thing in common. They all had a background or qualification in law. So I thought, okay, maybe the first thing I need to do is to get a law degree, and then I will figure out my way to get to the United Nations. Went ahead and pursued my BA law degree, pursued my LLB degree as a way to hopefully enter that space. I eventually got, lost in the world of practice, never made it to the United Nations. But the work that I had intended on doing, which is working with women in Africa, I got to do through my platform For Women in Law, where I mentor female law students. I provide mentorship, and we together explore the different career opportunities available for law graduates. And as an extension, we actually just introduced a mentorship program for men in law. And the reason for kind of the separation is because the mentorship programs are offered from different perspectives. With the girls or the women, it's from a woman's perspective, and with the men, it's also from a man's perspective. So we do this. I talk about, or I spend a lot of my time exploring the different career opportunities available for law graduates. I work a lot with recruiters, with talent acquisition consultants, just in an attempt to, identify what non-traditional career routes can law graduates explore? And the reason I'm passionate about this is twofold. One, I think it's super interesting, and it's it was really great to kind of equip yourself with as much information as you make your decisions about your career. But number two, there are a lot of law graduates. There are too many law graduates and just not enough space for everybody to land articles of clerkship. That's just the reality. That's just the truth. And I work a lot with, law firms, with talent acquisition officers, and I understand the pain points of the influx of applications that they get every single day from students looking for articles of clerkship, but these firms only having, you're getting 600 applications per day, but you only have space for 20 law graduates, candidates. And that's why I think it's very important for law graduates, for law students to be willing to explore non-traditional legal careers, because God forbid you don't land articles of clerkship. What do you do in that case? Why not explore something that you might actually end up being super interested in? I think it was the previous speaker who spoke about the law degree being such a having a law degree, you can work in a lot of spaces. It allows you to enter a lot of spaces, a lot of sectors. And that's why I enjoy exploring the different career opportunities available for law graduates. And what I've done for this presentation is because we could talk about this forever, but I've identified sort of 5 emerging high growth areas that I think at law student, law graduate, early entry level, what you guys can explore at the level that you're in, and how you can start kind of equipping yourself, the courses you can start taking in order to enter those spaces, which I will mention towards the end of my presentation. But going back, I took the traditional routes, right? So when I completed my LLB degree, I got offered articles of clerkship at a law firm called STBB Attorneys. It's a medium-sized law firm, but biggest in conveyancing in South Africa, in Sandton. And again, I accepted although my initial intention was to, get to the UN, I just never figured out how to get into that space. So when the opportunity came to serve my articles, I took it. And during my articles, I realized that I actually do well as an attorney. I do well in problem solving. I'm a very good speaker. And that's something those are skills I never really had the chance to leverage, or I didn't really know about myself. And I entered the space and I served my articles at STBB Attorneys. I was then retained as an associate. And I had a great time at the firm, but I also knew that I wanted to then, because the dream or the goal of working with women in Africa, that was already being fulfilled through my platform for women in law. So I was kind of open to explore what being an attorney would look like for me and what space I was going to gain exposure in or to specialize in. And as I worked in the conveyancing field, I realized that I really wanted to gain more exposure in the corporate commercial space. And I took up an opportunity to work at Afrique Conseil Associate as a legal consultant. And during that time, so as a legal consultant at Afrique Conseil Associate, we basically support complex cross-border investment structuring, mining commodities supply, and corporate governance across Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. So I got to work in an environment where I work on cross-border transactions in the commercial space. And another other skills that I was able to leverage in that space, something I'd never considered because I am bilingual English-French, was working in Francophone jurisdictions, French-speaking jurisdiction, something I never considered I'd be able to, or I was even interested in working in that environment. And I was able to kind of leverage my French-speaking skills, my cross-border kind of knowledge around Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, and work in this space. And during my time at Afrique Conseil Associé, where I still currently am now as a senior legal consultant, one of our clients who was seeking to kind of establish presence in South Africa from the US decided to appoint me as CEO of the subsidiary in South Africa to kind of build and lead the startup, leveraging my legal background to establish governance structure, compliance system, and just kind of scale operations. Again, something I never saw myself doing, but I was able to kind of be placed in that environment due to my legal background. And I mentioned this because the previous speaker mentioned a very important point about being able to if you're going to enter the legal field, you need to be able to, not a legal field, sorry. If you're going to enter the non-traditional legal field or legal career, you need to be able to leverage your legal background, your expertise in order to succeed in those roles. And that's what I was able to do as the MD of the company, and I fulfilled my mandate. And then went back to Afrique Conseil Associé, where I currently am as a senior consultant. And for me, that's the beauty of law. That's the beauty of how non-redundant the LLB degree is. You can find yourself in various spaces just by having an LLB degree. And one thing I've really learned early is that studying law doesn't mean that you are limited to one path. The law teaches you to think, to communicate, to negotiate, to solve problems, and to lead. You just have to kind of identify where your passion lies. Does your passion lie in academia? Do you love teaching? Do you enjoy mentoring? Then maybe academia is for you. Do you enjoy drafting? Do you enjoy communication? Do you enjoy problem solving, negotiating? If you are able to identify what it is that you enjoy doing, then you can identify which space of law you can enter into. For instance, I always knew I didn't want to be a litigation attorney. That just was never my calling. But I was able to leverage these soft skills that I already have to enter the space that I'm in. And as a commercial corporate attorney, I found myself working in the mining sector. I found myself working in the construction sector, pharmaceutical sector, because I'm a commercial corporate attorney. And I can understand, entering the legal profession can feel very overwhelming with the, uncertainty, the rejection, the pressure. And that's why, for me, and within the platform for women in law, I really encourage networking and mentorship. I do believe the previous speaker also mentioned mentorship. I'm a product of mentorship, and I provide mentorship as well. The beauty of mentorship for me is beauty of mentorship and networking rather, having people or somebody who can vouch for you in rooms that you don't have access to yet. They can vouch for you and create opportunities for you where you don't have access to yet. But even more than that, they can impart knowledge. They can impart, information. And that's why at this level, at this stage, as I know most of you right now are students, get yourself a mentor. start attending these networking events. And mind you, they're not always titled networking events, but you can kind of get an idea if an event is going to include networking, you're going to meet other professionals. That's how you build your network. Start early, start now, so that you're able to just kind of, build a network for yourself of people who can impart knowledge, share information, and once in a while, maybe even vouch for you as well. So a law degree can take you into business, it can take you into banking, it can take you into tech, it can take you into consulting, entrepreneurship, media, policy, diplomacy. One of my mentees, I want to say 2 years ago, she was part of my mentorship program. And within the mentorship program, sometimes, when I can, I organize job shadowing initiatives for the mentees, just to go see what a day in the life of an attorney, a corporate attorney, a labor lawyer looks like. And my mentee, who thought she wanted to be, in litigation, I sent her to a law firm that does a lot of litigation work. And her review to me was, oh, wow, it's not what I thought it was. And I don't think that's the space I want to get into. But I don't know what I want to get into. And we sat down, and what I like to do is to carry a map, what your fortes are, what your current interests, your attributes look like. And we discovered that she loves, she took tax as an elective, as an LLB student, and that's a module she really enjoyed. And she graduated earlier this year. And before she graduated, she got the opportunity to work for a company, I'm sure I can mention this, called PwC, as a tax associate. And we discovered that PwC is hiring LLB graduates as tax associates, which is something we weren't aware of. And that's why I really enjoy exploring the different career opportunities available for law graduates, knowing that straight from your, completing your LLB, you can enter into this space as a law graduate. I think that's really confirms what I've always understood, that you don't need to go the traditional route. You don't have to get admitted as an attorney if that's not what you want in order to enter certain spaces. Now, will being an attorney maybe give you an advantage? Absolutely. I recommend that you get admitted as an attorney if that's what you want to do. But there are other ways to enter, to be a legal professional, to enter these spaces without being an attorney. And I think law students are being done a huge disservice because I don't know about you, but when I was a law student, all the information we got was how to be an attorney, join these law firms, the big 5 firms. In fact, the smaller firms never came to us. All I knew was Bowman's, Weber Wenzel, and Norton Rose. Even the smaller firms didn't come and kind of market to us. And all we thought that the only way to succeed in this field was to go do your articles of clerkship and get admitted as an attorney. But what if that's not your interest? What if you don't want to get into practice? Or even worse, what if you cannot land articles of clerkship because there are just not enough roles for everybody at the same time? What do you do then? Where do you explore? And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing when I'm not being, counsel or consultant on legal matters. Finding out that companies like PwC are hiring fresh LLB graduates for roles such as tax associate was very interesting to me. And it tells me, and this is how I want you guys to think when you're career mapping, if PwC is doing it, that means other companies similar to PwC are also doing it. That means that's where you need to be looking at. Those are the companies you need to be looking at if that's the space you want to enter into. Okay. I think I was asked to talk about the challenges and kind of the skills and lessons for students. And I'm going to mention that right after I go through I think I have about, time is running out. I have the emerging and high growth areas that I want to touch on slightly for you guys to hopefully after this go out there and explore. And the way in which I'm going to try and present this is tailored for entry level, low student, low graduate. So the 5 emerging and high growth areas that I've identified as I work on this all the time currently is legal tech. Again, I heard one of the speakers talk about that. The legal tech space is an emerging area. And when I talk of legal tech, I want you to think AI. I want you to think automation. I want you to think contract tools. And in this space, what employers are looking for is, yes, obviously the basic legal knowledge, but also a certain level of comfort with technology, interest in technology. And I think the beauty about this space is you can self-teach, right? For instance, as I try to become a bit more AI savvy, I've been every week for at least an hour, I take an AI course. Right now, I'm really into Claude. So I'm teaching myself Claude, the different, not courses, but like the different, courses, Claude, under Claude, which is like, for me, I find that like ChatGPT times 100. So if you're somebody who wants to get into this space, I would start by learning AI tools, incorporating AI tools in the way you're currently working, whether it's contract management systems like DocuSign, for instance, legal research with using AI tools, take a short course in AI fundamentals for lawyers. But basically what I'm trying to say is pair your legal law qualification with an AI course, or even better than that, start incorporating AI into your work. That would really help you enter into this space. And again, an example of companies to look at that are hiring, legal tech consultants, MTN. If MTN is doing it, that means Celsey is doing it. That means Vodacom is doing it. So think about it in those senses, in those terms rather, when you are career mapping. Another emerging and high growth area that I want to touch on is data privacy and protection. Now, Liz, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions, but I do want to get a sense, like what comes to mind when I mention data privacy or data protection in South Africa. What is the main legislation that comes to mind when you think of data protection, privacy? Anybody, if you can, okay, great. POPI Act, absolutely. So thank you for answering that. So that's what data protection and privacy is all about. And if you want to enter into that space, you would need to anchor yourself with the POPI Act. How to enter this space, take a data privacy course, a POPI course, but really anchor yourself with the POPI Act, understand the POPI Act, learn the basics of breach reporting, data mapping, consent management, and so on. And another thing about these emerging areas is when you're looking for roles, for entry-level roles in these areas, is be very careful, because it won't always be direct. Like, it's not going to say, they're not going to tell you we're looking for a legal data privacy analyst. The role will probably look like just privacy analyst, and you have to do your research. Oh, is this for law graduates? Oh, yeah, it is. So those titles are not direct in the sense that they're not always going to have the word legal or law next to them, but they are for law graduates. Data protection officer, for instance, compliance assistant, for instance. Another emerging space that you can look into is the fintech and crypto regulation, a very competitive space, but high rewarding if you position yourself very early. And in this space, you would need to have a basic understanding of financial regulations, crypto, obviously, and very important FICA, and again, very important, anti-money laundering. Like, familiarize yourself with the FIC Acts and AML, which is anti-money laundering. Take short courses in that space. And linking this with a knowledge of AML, you will allow you to enter into these spaces. And some of the roles, the entry-level roles that I've seen in these spaces include AML analyst, regulatory analyst, compliance officer, in the fintech space. So look out for those. I believe I have 5 minutes. Another very, I think, fun space that I've identified emerging is the intellectual property digital space, where it's more than just about trademarks, but a lot about digital ownership. So here, think copyrights, content, music, online platforms, think trademarks, brands, think influencer law, for instance. That would all fall under intellectual property space. And you get to work with creatives, with startups, and how to position yourself to enter this space would be to really understand IP law. So do an intro to IP law course, and familiarize yourself with IP law in order to enter this space. And some of the practical work that you would do under this space would be drafting licensing agreements, for instance, terms of use. I briefly worked in this space when I would review licensing agreements for artists. And these agreements a lot of the times involves kind of managing how the artist's image or likeness is used and not how it's exploited, basically. So that's what you would, that's kind of work you would do under this kind of this field. And then lastly, another emerging space would also be compliance and risk. And this is one of the most, I would say, stable paths. Some of the key areas could include AML, anti-money laundering, regulatory compliance, corporate governance, and you would focus on, again, FICA, OP Act, apply to banks in order to enter this space, to insurance companies, financial services as well. And it's very important to take, compliance certifications. Even short ones would really help in order for you to enter these spaces. But basically what I'm trying to, I guess, convey here is a lot of the non-traditional legal career paths, in order to enter them, just having your LLB alone is not enough. You need to pair it up with some short course, some, like we said, comfort in technology. You need to be able to take a couple of certifications and pair that up with your law degree or your law qualification in order to enter this space. Your LLB alone will not always be enough in order to enter these spaces. Now, this brings me back to, I think, the skills and lessons that I think you should develop now as a law student or even a law graduate. Some of the key skills I think every law student needs, because you get to leverage them when you enter the working space, is communication. Very important, whether it's written or oral. Develop your communication skills, sharpen your communication skills. That really counts for you. Your research skills, very important. And right now I'm mentioning soft skills because, a lot of the times students what you currently have working for you is your soft skills. So you want to be able to leverage that and sharpen that. So communication, research, your professionalism, your professional etiquette. And I'm going to stress this because, again, I mentioned for women in law, I work a lot with talent, and we do our intake of mentees like 4 times a year. And I'm very attentive, right? So once in a while, I'll get a couple of emails where I can already tell the etiquette here is off. And thank God this is mentorship and this is the place for you to learn professional etiquette. But you'd be surprised, or I've been surprised at university level, that there is a lack and in professional etiquette. And you really need to sharpen that right now before you get into the workspace. It's not actually, I'm not even going to minimize it, but sending an email with an attachment and not having a body to the email, just sending an attachment, that's not professional etiquette. Have a body there. Hi, Miss X, kindly find attached, kind regards. And those are the things I've identified, the lack of emotional etiquette with some of early talent. Reaching out to no subject line as well. Oh my goodness. Reaching out to somebody for the first time via WhatsApp and not introducing yourself. I get that all the time. Good day. Kindly advise when the next session is. But who are you? Where are you contacting? Those things matter. And because you don't have the expertise yet, the experience yet, those are the only things you have to create an impression of yourself. So you want to use that to create a better impression. So start sharpening your soft skills right now as students. Absolutely, your marks matter, but your attitude, your communication skills, your reputation matters as well. And when you are applying for these opportunities, a lot of the time they're not testing whether you're the smartest in the room. They can see that from your marks. Getting into these work spaces, these work environments, it's now more than just your marks. Now they are testing your communication. Now they are testing whether you're a culture fit. Now they are testing whether you can, you work well within a team. So those are things you need to start sharpening very early. And my practical advice for students is just going back to the networking and the mentorship part. Start building relationships early. Start networking, guys. It's so important. Right now in my career, after I completed my articles and then I was retained at STBB Attorneys, every opportunity I've obtained was by a referral. Granted, absolutely, my qualifications matter. I'm a whole attorney, I have my degrees and I have this expertise, but I was referred, I was vouched for. And sometimes that's how it is, what you know matters, but who you know also matters. People who can vouch for your work, who can vouch for how professional you are. So build those relationships early. Seek mentorship, attend events, ask questions, become commercially aware, where applicable. Protect your reputation, but also very, very important. Try not to compare your journey to others. I know we can, as law students, it's very easy to compare. Okay, this one just completed, they got articles of clerkship. I'm still out here looking. Try not to do that because sorry, I see we've gone past the time and I'm going to stop right there just to respect the time allocated. But I hope my message has been received, or what I was trying to deliver anyway. Thank you, Elizabeth and Buntle.
Thank you so much, Ms. Muyi. That was indeed very informative for the students, and I hope they all aspired and they heard your words and they take that into mind. Any questions, Elizabeth, before we move on to our final speaker?
Thank you, Bontle. Okay, there is one question that says, does the school you graduate from affect your chances of getting into practice? Do some schools give their students more advantage, or does it mostly come down to individual work and experience?
It depends. There are definitely certain organizations that have a preference. They would rather get their candidates from specific institutions or universities. Absolutely, there are. And I say this as somebody who works with talent and who works with recruiters. There are absolutely certain, companies who would rather pull their talent from specific institution. Now, does that amount to discrimination? Possibly. But some of the questions I've gotten in the past were with regards to the Big Five, right? Excuse me. And at the time, the question that I got was from a student who had studied at, I believe it was in University of Venda. And they asked, why don't the Big Five recruit from Univen, for instance? And I had invited a recruiter from a Big Five at the time. It was a mentorship session. And what the recruiter said was, it's not that we don't recruit from, these areas. It's mostly we don't get applications from these areas because they discount themselves already. Like our applications, absolutely, it includes a lot, your VITS, your University of Pretoria, your UJ, but hardly do we come across applications from, these kind of like the Univens, the University of Free State, for instance, not because you wouldn't stand a chance, but because you have already discounted yourself. If your marks and your qualification and your maybe even experience are relevant to the opportunity that is being put out, you will absolutely get in. So there is also that, and I think it's very nuanced here, but bear that in mind as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Naomi. You've left the students feeling very inspired. Thank you for your time. Bontle, I think there aren't any more questions. You may proceed.
I actually see a few questions, if I may answer them. There's actually quite a few questions, if I may answer them.
Yes. Okay, sure. I saw just one pop up now. Okay.
Can I please disturb? We're running out of time for the session. So is it possible for us to just try and obtain all the emails of our speakers? We will email all the questions and then we can return to the students with the answers that have been given. Okay, thank you guys. Our final speaker is Jared Pooley. He is the co-founder of BriefCo and the South African Legal Technology Network. He focuses on innovation and the intersection between law and technology. So let us welcome our final speaker. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Bontle. And I hope everyone can hear me as well. I have joined, just as a precursor, let me just say this, I have joined a bit late in terms of hearing some of the other panelists. So if I do reiterate any information, that should just tell you how important it is. And also I apologize for making you sit through and trying to drill into it again. But yes, so as introduced, my name is Jared Poole. I am an admitted attorney of the High Court and obtained my LLB from the University of the Western Cape. I'm currently a co-founder of the South African Legal Technology Network, which is a technology network that specializes in just essentially providing access to attorneys when it comes to knowledge and information on AI technology and any kind of innovative solution that they can maybe use in practice. I'm also a co-founder of another company called BriefCo, which is a legal cost consultancy. And in that company, what we do is that once you are awarded costs in a litigation matter, we are then able to help you compute those costs by using a combination of tech and AI, and a process that traditionally takes something along the lines of 5 to 6 months, we can do in 5 business days. So I work with an incredible team. That includes 2 other attorneys in terms of the co-founding team, 2 other attorneys that are also admitted practitioners. And then we also have a developer who works with us that builds all of our systems in-house. And so we're able to keep quite a tight focus on the direction that we want to go. And we're also able to build any of the solutions that we sort of dream up and that we want to implement in any of the businesses that we run together. So it's a very interesting topic that you guys are talking about today, something that I think that is very relevant to law students all over the country and all over the world as well. And that's because of when I was studying, at least anyway, there wasn't an access point to the exposure for students to come and be exposed to things like alternate legal careers using your LLB. And I know that there were various differences to how diverse the application of the LLB qualification is. And that is very true because the implementation of technology in structures and practices allows for certain processes to become more efficient. And once that happens, it actually opens the opportunity for new opportunities and for new career paths that have been highlighted by some of the previous speakers here today. In terms of going back to my story, why I chose to study law, I was actually choosing between politics and law at the time. And I had a job shadowing experience with a politician at the time. And then also chose one other potential career that I wanted a job shadowing. And when none of those appealed to me, I knew that I still wanted to pursue some form of consideration of policy, some form of application of the law. And I also wanted to really help people in a sense that, and I don't want to say it in a cliche way, in the sense of what you normally hear from practitioners, but more in a sense of when it comes to the rule of law, it can be very difficult to interpret. And what I found easy is that I could just had a natural inclination for considering certain policies, considering certain rules, and being able to apply them to a situation, which naturally led me down the path of law. I also had a keen interest in just problem solving. And I think that is something that then drew me to this, puzzle of applying policy or rules to certain situations. And I was very nervous when I first applied for my LLB. I didn't know if I was going to enjoy it or not. And within the first week of me actually doing my classes, my introductory classes, I immediately knew that this was the proper choice. I had friends around me who had struggled with their choices of where they wanted to go with their careers. Some of them had left the LLB program. Some of them had joined the LLB program. I was very fortunate enough in that I found my path in terms of my qualification firsthand. Another interesting point that I must agree with from my previous speakers is that when it came to the subjects that you study as part of your law degree, you'll see the diversification of the application of your qualification. You'll see that you can, apply to criminal law, to insolvency law, to anything under the sun, tax, to trusts, to whatever. And all of those relate to real world situations that people are going to require help and assistance with. And so I just really enjoyed being exposed to those things and building a career on that is where I set my sights on. What happened to me was that I then go and finish my LLB qualification. And in my head, I'm like, yes, I'm going to be an attorney for the rest of my life. And this is the life I chose. Thought I was going to be in practice. I finished my articles at a boutique law firm here in Cape Town, where we specialized in basically everything except for criminal law. So I did a lot of family law, did a lot of civil litigation. I did a lot of even, rental housing tribunal matters, labor law, all the like. And once I had reached about a year into my post-admission journey, my firm was very tech friendly in terms of the leadership that was there at the time and the leadership structures, very invested in trying to be innovative. And what happened is that this was around about the time that COVID was kicking in, which at this point I know is quite a long time ago. So I hope no one just went, he's an old bally. But essentially what happened is that our firm started using a lot of tech way before something like COVID came in. Once COVID came in and it hit the practice area or the legal profession, a lot of firms were struggling to adapt. We simply just woke up one day at the office, woke up the next day, and we were at home using all the same systems that people are now using as normal practice and as everyday tools. I was then approached as part of the team there. I was then approached by various legal tech sort of entrepreneurs and suppliers who are hoping to work with our firm. And because of us being so friendly with tech, I really liked supporting small business and these innovative young operations. So much so that once I resigned from law, or once I resigned from the firm, I then was approached by one of these companies to join the founding team, which is the Briefco team that I'm now sitting as part of. And the amazing thing about it is that I even turned them down the first time, and I said, no, I want to become when I resigned from the law firm, I'd set my sights on the fact that this was around about Feb. I said, applications for pupillage at the Cape Bar opens in June. I'm going to resign now. I'm going to get my stuff together and I'm going to go to the bar. And that is what I said. And, then I realized I got my stuff together quite quickly. And then I had a few months left and I was like, okay, what do I do now? And then they came back a second time to talk to me. And I said, you know what, let me try this for 3 months. Let me see how it goes. And if I don't like it, I'll just go and I will do something else, or I'll go to the bar like I planned and I'd apply there. I then work as part of this core co-founding team. And within a week, I already knew, hey, I'm going to need to change my plans and adapt what I thought is going to come of my career. And I always used to say in that first 2 years I was with the company, I always used to say, if you had given me 10 wishes, or if you had given me 10 opportunities to try and guess where my career would have gone, I would have never have guessed that I would have been here. And so what had happened is that our company had then grown from servicing a small amount of firms to now operating across all 9 provinces. I have taxed before taxing masters in every formal forum in the country, going all the way from a magistrate's court right up to the constitutional court as well. And so I still get the opportunity to make use of my status as an admitted attorney by appearing in these forums. But at the same time, because of the company we are running, I am very sort of hands-on when it comes to more business development areas and application of innovative solutions in terms of companies as well. What's then happened is that as case lines has been adopted by the judiciary in this country, it's meant that a lot of law firms and attorneys are naturally then looking towards suppliers that are also tech-friendly in order to implement systems within their processes. And so, for instance, everyone is now using case lines. As a result, more people are using things like OneDrive, which is like an online storage facility, and it's even a workflow tool nowadays, using stuff like OneDrive or SharePoint, and then wanting to use suppliers that similarly won't make them print out all their documents whenever they need to use their services. And so they look at us for their cost recovery, and then we slide right into that process bouquet and offering. So moving into some of the what the role entails that I sort of take up, it's really everything. It's going from, like I said, business development to appearing at taxations, to trying to settle matters, to just doing a whole lot of things that are focused on either obtaining more clients in a sort of a business development sense, being a startup, and then also in other areas actually resolving those matters at court. Now, we were very fortunate enough in that after 2 years of operation, we were actually approached by a venture capital firm that's headed up by one of the local billionaires, and they have invested in our company and provided us with sufficient investment to now pursue a whole host of other informative solutions as part of our package and service offering. And so what happens is that you find yourself in the space where you don't really know what the day or what the week or what the month holds for you, but all you have to believe in is the opportunity before you. And this then leans heavily on some of the earlier points that was made around networking, around knowing people in the right spaces and areas, and not being afraid to just believe in yourself and going through those steps. And so I've honestly found myself I mean, we were just in Johannesburg for a week. We were attending the Johannesburg Arbitration Week to just try and network with our existing and potential clients. I have spent my days in printing shops, printing out name tags for our events and spending early hours of the morning busy cutting out name tags. I have, like I said, prepped for hearings at court. I have assisted in sort of giving advice to some of our clients with what legal solutions they should actually adopt as part of the structures of trying to be a new and innovative law firm. All of it stems or goes back to this flow of having sufficient understanding of how the law works, but also how the structures operate to allow for an efficient process within that structure. And so even if you, and I mean, it was a great point that was raised earlier about, tech and AI coming in, not to necessarily replace everyone, but to increase the efficiency of how they do work and to allow you to spend time in better and more critical areas. Instead of doing things like gathering data and information and evidence, you're now spending more of your time in the critical thinking part of actually applying the evidence that you've collated and applying it to the situation that you're facing. So a lot of the challenges, for instance, that we faced when we came into this and that we still do today is that, the profession is quite an old profession. And so you have people that are stuck in their ways where even though it's 2026, they still want to use, physical files and written notes and do everything with a dictaphone. And they just want to, and I mean, these days, email seems like it's old school, but there are people that for email, it's still very innovative for them. They liked sending letters on letterheads and doing things that way. And so when they were forced to use email, it was a bit of a jump. Now they're getting scared by this whole thing of AI. And, there's 2 or 3 recently judgments that are passed with application or where attorneys had used AI tools in order to draft heads of argument, a very important document in the legal process. And then it hallucinated cases and made up cases that were inserted into this matter, and the judge, the presiding officer, caught on. And I actually even heard during the week where this happened in Durban, one practitioner is actually facing being struck off the roll. So it very naturally then means that people are worried about sort of using tech because they don't want to be struck off the roll. And so they get very hesitant to apply these solutions, and you're trying to sell a solution to them that is very much tech enabled and tech heavy. So sometimes people are very open to it where they sort of have a bit of experience with different products. And sometimes people want nothing to do with it because of these 1 or 2 off cases where this happens. Other kind of stories that you hear is that it happened with a top 5 firm where their conveyancing department was handling a transfer. And obviously, this is big funds. And what happened is that there was a phishing scam, I think it was, or I'm not too sure how it happened, but essentially bank details were compromised, and it was something like 3.5 or 5 million rand. It was just lost, that the firm was now liable for this property transfer that had gone wrong. And so then again, people don't want to use tech because they think it's got all these risks to it. And it's not that it's not a proper consideration, but you have to have context of the environment that you're operating in order to understand how much importance that risk plays in your situation. So for instance, making sure that the programs or the tools that you use have sufficient security protocols, and being able to see sort of evidence of use cases of these products, that's where you buy a lot of confidence when it comes to a legal product that uses a lot of tech, especially in South Africa, where it's quite a conservative industry. At the moment, we're seeing a massive move and spike in legal tech investment. So for instance, companies in America, your LexisNexis and stuff that operate globally are now looking into employing AI chat tools into their offerings and working on it in a sense where it is now becoming a lot more acceptable in a lot of the international or foreign jurisdictions, which then naturally flows down into the smaller jurisdictions and the alternate jurisdictions as well. So definitely I would say one of the biggest concerns or challenges is trying to get people friendly with tech where they are not, maybe where they don't really have such a big belief in it, where they don't really think that it is worth the effort of trying to get to learn what tech does. But I guarantee you that this is something that is an attorney that doesn't use tech is going to get left behind. And so in some way or another, you need to consider these things when it comes to adopting your processes. Now with that, and speaking on the topic of today, what then happens is as these different processes are defined, You then find yourself in an instance with, certain actions and certain activities that would have taken you, 3, 4, 5 months to do. Using tech can now take you sometimes even just one prompt and some supporting documents. There's been some great companies that have started up in the legal tech space, for instance, Moray, previously known as Exigent. There's Lighthouse Law, there's Cognia Law as well. And all of these companies specialize in doing some form of legal tech process that they have refined by using technology. These processes have been adopted by international standards, or it's been adopted as part of international operations for HSBC Bank, for instance, for some of the bigger groups like Citibank as well. And now it is sort of coming into the South African space where now companies here locally are also focusing on these kinds of process efficiency. So, there's some examples of what you can do nowadays when it comes to your alternative legal career, and some opportunities that I've seen that exists. So, some of them were mentioned earlier in terms of being, legal engineers or process development managers. There's knowledge managers as well. There are or sometimes they're called innovation managers as well, whose roles are specifically to investigate all of these new tools that are coming out and trying to essentially make sure that they are okay for the company to use and stress test them. Some other opportunities exist with just in the entrepreneurship space alone, which is something that we've done, where you go out and you identify as one of these older, inupdated processes that are very manual in nature. And what you then do is you apply tech and you try and refine the process, and you basically become a service provider for these bigger law firms. There's also some great opportunities in practice management solutions, so working for companies like AJS, who build practice management solutions for practitioners as well. And then obviously the work that we do at BriefCo, where you can become a legal cost consultant and work in a specific area or niche area of the dispute resolution process, which focuses on using tech to draw up what we call a bill of costs. You're then able to go and appear not before a judge, but you're still able to appear before a taxi master, and you still have a bit of exposure to that traditional adversarial process and being able to argue against opponents in matters over various inputs or exclusions to a bill of costs. So a lot of these career opportunities exist as a result of tech opening up the field. I would say that it's not, tech is ever evolving. And so I don't think we have even reached the end of what we can consider to be the bubble of what's available in terms of career opportunity. I think it grows every day. We're now seeing, for instance, that there are AI tools that practitioners can use to help them refine the drafting or the research. So, for instance, you have tools like Adjunct, which uses AI to essentially do case law research for you. And so companies like Adjunct are also looking for people to become part of their structures and to help them with that. But in a general sense as well, entrepreneurship is something that sits behind a lot of these core areas I've identified, and entrepreneurship in general is something that should also be considered. Can be considered a risk, but there's also a lot of reward if you are identifying and using the proper processes to identify issues and to resolve those issues. Going back to another point that I just touched on very much earlier, and it was raised by a previous panelist as well. When it comes to knowledge in this space, it's not necessarily about who's doing what, it's about who has access to the knowledge. And you can only get access to the knowledge if you actually put the effort in to go out there and to go and collate it for yourself so that you can gain your own understanding from the right and reputable areas. This involves going to networking events, because what you'll find is that the people who are considered to be the market leaders in those areas will always then be around in these networking events, for instance, and you can gain access to them and develop relationships with them and exposure to them and their way of thinking. And very, very honestly, it's been the reason for a lot of the opportunities that have come our ways in terms of a business sense. And that's why the South African Legal Technology Network actually ran these networking events where you could come and interact with like-minded individuals. And what then happens is you gain an appreciation for the group thinking of where technology and legal technology in particular finds itself in South Africa. That then opens the door for understanding what the actual context of the environment looks like. And then you can properly identify, who you want to approach to try and be your mentor, or who you would like to take discussions with further on the outside. And so even though there's a lot of tech being used in this process, you shouldn't forget to focus on the human aspect of interacting with people in the profession. And so I think I'm running out of time.
Right.
Yes,
Yes, I just wanted to remind you there are
Yes,
2 minutes left.
I was just going to say, so in closing, I just wanted to say that when it comes to sort of working in this environment, you need to consider the fact that even if you think you don't know anything now, make the effort to try and put yourself in the spaces where you can go and find the right information. And don't be too scared of tech and the implementation of technology, because it could be where the next career opportunity stems from. Just do a few Google researches on some of the companies I've mentioned. And I'd love to take some questions if there are any after the little bit of a presentation that I've managed to give now.
Okay, for the interest of time, I will just take one question from the chat. It says, Jared, you made mention of your love of working with small businesses. What exactly are the types of interventions you offer? Thanks.
So, I mean, a bit of context on that, I would need to know if you're speaking about sort of the solutions we offer. In that case, the one company we've got, like I said, Briefco does balls of costs, which is more with civil litigation or dispute resolution practices. So people that are in court, practitioners that are going to court and resolving issues at court. We assist them in recovering the costs of litigation for their client, or opposing someone who is trying to claim costs against their client. We've got the South African Legal Technology Network, and we there focus on, like I said, just connecting people through networking events. We had in-person events in Cape Town and Johannesburg on a few rooftops that sort of incorporated panels of discussion. And at our most recent one, we had Brent Porter, who was the CEO of what now known as Denise. What we would then do is that allow like-minded individuals from in-house and from practice to come together and find each other. And then we also have a legal tech company, which is sort of focusing on the education sector and educating legal practitioners in using technology to become more efficient in the practical sense. There's a whole host of other smaller areas that can be identified, and advantage can be taken of those as well. But that's just some of the areas that we touch on.
Okay, thank you very much, Jared, for your knowledge and for imparting your wisdom as well and your experience. Any other questions, we will forward them to the relevant panelists. I can see that there are a lot of questions in the chat. Unfortunately, for the interest of time, we will need to sort of not address some questions now, but we will address it at a later stage. Please do email your questions to us. On behalf of the Regenesis, I would like to extend a big thank you to our panelists who came today to impart their knowledge with us and their journey, especially encouraging the students that mentorship is important and that it starts now. We are truly grateful for your knowledge and your experiences and you having shared that with us. We certainly hope that this is not the last time that we will be seeing your faces and where you impart some further knowledge or wisdom to the students rather. I would just like to extend a big thank you for taking your time out today for this to join us for this webinar. We are truly grateful. And that's it from my side. I don't know if Bontle would like to add on to that.
I just would like to thank everybody for joining and taking the time to participate as well as to listen. And I hope everybody took some knowledge from what was said, as well as just took into account the different parts of LLB, what the different parts within the LLB field can do for you. So without any further contributions, thank you so much to our panelists as well as to you, Elizabeth, and everybody who joined. I hope everyone has a lovely afternoon.